This is the digital how-to webinar on how to actually create a digital product. This is the second video in a series of 3, which is going to help you to go from an idea to creating a digital product to selling a digital product. Today, we are all about creation. If you want to get the videos from last week, then that's fine. Just let us know by coming to our Boldly Different Facebook page and we will be able to share those with you. I'm going to move on now because we've already had a bit of a delay thanks to sort of technical hiccups. Are you still seeing the page now? I sort of lost it for a minute. Okay. So what's the plan? Basically, we are going to talk today all about creation. As I said, the last workshop was all about research, and the next workshop will be all about how to sell your new digital product that you're going to create today. Why am I teaching this? For those of you who are new here, Simon and I, my husband, we have a little business together that we've had for since 2002, so some 13 odd years, where we created a digital product or two and sold them online. And because of that, we're now able to travel the world and do pretty much whatever we want as long as we have an internet connection, which ironically is something that's getting in our way right this very minute, is that we don't have a very good internet connection at the place that we're staying at, let alone at the cafe where we are now trying to run this webinar. But if you hang in there, we'll get this stuff out to you and you'll be able to go ahead and create a digital product of your own. So right now, Simon and I are travelling the world for the next, I think we've got a year to go. We've been travelling for a year already with 3 of our children and getting to see a lot of the world, which has been fantastic. And the only reason we can do that is thanks to the income that we can make using the World Wide Web. We're hoping that other people who want to explore the world like we are can also achieve those things by creating a digital product of their own or some kind of digital income. Hence, we are sharing this information so more people can explore the world like us. All right, one of the things I'd like you to know, so Simon keeps telling me off for saying all right because it's become my favourite word, it seems. Anyway, let's move on. One of the things I want to remember to tell you is to go to the Boldly Different Facebook group and ask to join, because there we will have lots of information for you and we'll have lots of support for you. So you will definitely have plenty of questions, not just today, but once you start developing your own product and then selling it online, you'll have loads of questions. Things will get in your way and we don't want them to actually stop you taking action. So come over and join the group and ask us any questions that you need to. We also have another offer at the end to do with our coaching club too, which is another way that you can get help. However, let's move on to today's workshop. For those of you who missed last week's, as I said, you can access the recording at Boldly Different Facebook group. You'll find a link there to the recording. But last week what we did was did a whole bunch of research on what you could possibly create a how-to product on, and what that resulted in you coming up with 20 to 40 questions that the target market really wants answered relating to this particular how-to product or this niche area that you're going to create a digital product on. And the beauty of that is you now know exactly what the target market wants. You can go and answer those questions. When you answer those questions, you now have a real framework around which to create some kind of digital course, be it an ebook, a video, an audio, a magazine, a subscription, whatever it is. You now have a framework around which to create that, and you'll have a lot more success with it because you've actually created it based on what the market has told you it wants. So it's quite a powerful thing. If you haven't watched it, go back and have a look, and you need to start there. Don't start at this stage of creating. Go and start at the research first. All right. Now, let's get a move on. I think I said that all right again. Before we move into how to create your digital product, we're going to talk a bit about who your ideal customer is. This is probably the most important thing anybody in any business, be it online or offline, really needs to know. You need to know who your target market is, or your ideal customer, or your avatar. There are loads and loads of different descriptions for this particular person that you need to understand who they are, because without that understanding you can't market to them properly. Even big businesses like Walmart in America have an avatar or an ideal customer who they call um, Homer. And Homer, they know exactly his age, they know his income bracket, they know how many children he has, they know what his hobbies are, they know what time he gets up in the morning, they know what cereal he eats, they know what brand of underpants he likes best. They just know everything about him because somebody has taken the time, or a group of people has taken the time, sat down and described to the nth degree who Homer is. And so when this particular department of Walmart is now doing any kind of marketing or talking to their customer, they are talking to Homer. They aren't talking to Homer's second cousin down the street who lives around the corner and has a slightly different life from Homer. They actually just talk to Homer. So they very much hone in and target one person with one set of values, one everything. But as a result, yes, they do bring in other people as well, but they have a target person in mind. And so their marketing then is always very much on focus and targeted and much, much more effective. You need to learn from that, and you also need to spend the time to work out exactly who your ideal customer is. One of the workshops we used to run people through years ago actually involved me bringing in a load of magazines, and everyone would sit around. We were having this exact conversation, which, mind you, went for a whole day, not just the couple of minutes I'm going to talk to you about it now. I brought in scissors, I brought in sticky tape, and they had to write up a whole description on who their ideal customer was, and then they had to open those magazines and cut a picture out of someone who, in their mind, epitomised their ideal customer. They then needed to create a little word picture with that person in the middle on an A4 piece of paper, and they would stick that near their computer when they got home. So anytime they were doing any sort of social media or any kind of just even normal advertising in the local newspaper or preparing articles for a magazine, they were always directing their message or what they were writing directly at that particular person. Not only did they have the words around it that sort of described that person, but they also had an image. They had the person in front of them. So it was a really powerful thing to do, and always reminded them of who they are supposed to be talking to, so that their message didn't become wishy-washy. And I want you to keep that in mind through everything you do, not just this workshop and not just when you're creating your product. But going forward into next week's webinar on selling, it's just as important. It's basically vital in every part of your business, anywhere, online or offline, that you know who you're selling to so that your message really hits the market. All right, let's move on to actually creating it. I'm sorry for what you can hear in the background. Let's create it. We're going to create a digital product. And what is a digital product? We went over that last week a little bit, and it basically is just something that sits online, be it an audio, a video, it could be software, it could be a PDF, like written, that's the most basic form, like an ebook. It could even be like a subscription, it could be a bunch of emails. It's basically things that live in the digital world. We call them digital products. It means you don't have to go to the post office and send off a physical product to anybody. You can just rely on download links and things like that. So it's a great kind of product to have for people who want to be mobile like us. Now, what I need you to do is get those questions that you've had answered from the last webinar and organise them into what would appear to be an obvious sort of an obvious flow, if you like. You'll see if you list all the questions out that there will be an obvious sort of way around, like an obvious way to go. Like there'll be what you need at the start of a process, what you need in the middle, and what you need at the end. It should be reasonably obvious, especially because we're dealing at the moment with how-tos. This isn't some sort of esoteric essay we're trying to get you to write. You're actually just trying to teach somebody how to do something. This is what this particular webinar series is about, is teaching you how to create a how-to digital product, if you like. So have a look at that. One thing you can do, and one thing that we've only just done recently, you can actually outsource that. And we will cover outsourcing quite a bit in this webinar because it is an often overlooked thing that you can do. Most of business owners want to take ownership of everything and they want to do it all themselves. the reality is you have the ability to outsource these days. In fact, the outsourcing world in the digital world is massive. So you can actually outsource anything that you do. And that includes setting out basically an outline for your upcoming course or your ebook or your video. You can actually get that that particular process outsourced. There are people who will outline these things for you. You can go somewhere like Fiverr, Fiverr, and they would just love to do that for you. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. This is where I want you to think about your title. So what title you might call your upcoming course, your upcoming ebook. It's not something that's set in stone. I don't want you to get frightened that you might not like it in a week's time. That's fine, you can change it. It's just to help you feel that it's more real. Often, people live in this world of, I'm going to do so-and-so one day. And the reality is they never actually get around to it. They just spend a lot of time talking about what they're going to do. If you do something like give your new book or your new course a title, it's going to feel more real to you, and that is going to help you take the next steps that are necessary to make it a reality. So I would love you to come up with some kind of title. When you're doing that, go to the supermarket, for example, and look at all of the titles and the magazines and books that they sell there. Use them as a guide as to how you can get a title, what kind of title you could create that it's going to be very useful. You'll notice in magazines, for example, they use a lot of numbers, like here's the best 3 tips to getting skinny for summer. You'll probably see that all the time, especially leading up to summer. Or here are 5 recipes which will save your Christmas lunch or something like that. So you see they're using numbers because they're quantifiable. So it's quite a good hint when it comes to you creating a how-to product to use some kind of number-based thing in your title. You should think about descriptive words, making sure that whatever it is that you are trying to sell to them, that the title includes some kind of descriptive word. So when they read what it is you're trying to sell them, they read the title, they're not going to have to think, oh, I don't even know what this is about. Is this even something I'd be interested in? So, how to train my puppy in 10 steps is obviously a much better title than something that doesn't even include puppies or anything else. Yeah, but is about how to train your puppy in 10 steps. So trying to help, if you like, your marketing just in your title is a really good idea. So make sure people know what your book is about or what your course is about. The other thing I'd like to see you do, because it's a bit of fun for a start, but it's also, again, very good at creating that this is something real for you, is to come up with a tagline. It's also something you can use when you're talking to other people about your product. And again, to try and make it descriptive is a good idea. An example I love to use is a client that we had back in Australia. She actually had a business in hair removal, and her name was Mary, and her tagline was, "Don't be hairy, come see Mary." Now that is a great tagline that I certainly remember, and every time I use it in any workshops we get a lot of giggles, so other people remember it as well. So you don't have to have a "Don't be hairy, come see Mary" kind of tagline, but if you can have one that does describe what you do in a way that people will remember, you'll be leaps, if not streets, ahead of your competitors in that way. Okay, so what you've got is you have an outline. Just in those first few slides, you now have an outline of your chapters and your sections for your upcoming product. You have a title and possibly a tagline as well. What don't we have? I know, we don't actually have the product yet. So maybe we should move on to all the options that you have to actually create this digital product that we need you to create in order to get something that you can sell online. What are all the platforms that you could possibly create your digital product in? And that's what we're going to talk about next. You can have things like an ebook, which is basically a PDF. That's the things that you read online. They're just the words that you see. I'm sure pretty much everyone now has heard of an ebook before. You can have a video, you could have audio, you could have a subscription/membership kind of method or site platform. You could have software, you could even have magazines, or a combination of all of those things. So these are all different platforms that you could create your how-to product or how-to course and put them in those. It just is going to depend on what you feel most comfortable doing, as well as what, this is what I want you to keep in mind, as well as what your potential customer or client is going to be most comfortable in consuming your product in. Again, it is really, really important to keep that in mind. Are they the kind of people who love an audio to plug in while they go for a jog in the morning? Or are they the sort of people who are going to sit down and watch a video on how to put that table together, or whatever it is? So you need to think about that a little bit, not only what you're comfortable doing, but also what your potential customers or clients are going to be comfortable consuming. Now, ebook, we'll touch on that one first because it is the most obvious one. Ebooks are those ones that we will be reading online. It's where we started. People go to Amazon, to Kindle, and get a lot of their books there, their ebooks to read. If you want some ideas of the sort of things that people are now producing ebooks in, you can go over to Amazon. Basically what you'll find is everything. There is really not much that you can't find in an ebook now. And in fact, it is one place that we'll talk about next week briefly, because it's a place you can be selling your upcoming ebook as well. Now, how are you going to create this ebook that you're going to have? You could write it yourself. How are you going to do that? Well, you've got all those questions. All you have to do is answer them. How are you going to answer them? Well, you could go to the library if you like, or you could use Google. You could go to the bookstore. You could do a ton of different things. If you think you're not much of a writer, another thing you could do is answer the questions. So say you've done a lot of research, you found all of the answers, you could actually answer all those questions in an audio. You could just read the answers, and then you can get someone else to transcribe them. Now you have an audio and a PDF or an ebook. So you have it in both written format and an audio format. You could also get a friend to interview. If you find it more comfortable, you could get a friend to ask you the questions from the first webinar. Get them to ask the 20 to 40 questions, and then you can again record it and get it transcribed. And that's another way you could do it. You could also be a little bit like Oprah if you like, and you could go out and find all the experts on this topic, and you could interview them and again get it transcribed. And then you'll need to get it edited perhaps, which again you could outsource if you like to someone like from a place like Fiverr, or you could even just ask a friend to read through it and give you their opinion on it. So there are loads and loads of ways that you can do this yourself without it being too much of a stress. I'm not sure if you can remember from last week, but we did talk about if you were able to consume all of the information you could get a hold of over the weekend on one particular topic, you would know more than 90% of the population on that topic. So do not discount research, whatever you do. There are heaps of opportunities for you to research it and create the product yourself without you having to be the expert necessarily either. Of course, as we touched on a minute ago, there is plenty of outsourcing you can do. The first book that we created back in 2002 was actually outsourced to a website called Elance, which is now part of Upwork. And so for $500, we had somebody create a book for us, which they ghostwrite. So it's in my name, and it only costs $500, and we still sell that book to this day. So you can go and do a search on places like Elance for ghostwriters, and then try and find one in your particular area, and you'll be surprised at just how cheaply you can get an ebook written now, especially as you've already done the outline. All you really want them to do is fill in all the gaps by answering those questions. So you've done quite a bit of the work already, and it'll all be in your name. So you can have a book in the next few weeks, and all you've really done is collect 20 to 40 questions, and that's it. Easy, huh? There's one more thing I want you to think about before we leave the ebook world, and that is the artwork and the branding. So although an ebook is a digital product, it is also it also has a visual component. So when you're putting things out online, people will be seeing the graphics and things like that, the graphics of the ebook, if you like, so like a cover. image. They will also see all of the advertising that you put out, which will often include images. You need to give that a little bit of thought. As they say, a picture has 1,000 words, is worth 1,000 words. And you need to really communicate clearly through your design just what it is you're trying to sell. Excuse me. So I would suggest that you could outsource that to places like Fiverr and Upwork, and there's another one called 99 Designs, which specialises, as the name says, in designs. Or you could even have a little go at it yourself using websites like Canva, which give you the ability to create an ebook cover. The other thing I would like to see you do is go to Google Images and do a bit of a search on your niche and add the word book cover or even logo. You'll find there that you'll come up with a whole bunch of ideas where people have gone and created special logos and book covers in the particular niche that you're in. It'll give you a bunch of ideas that you can go forward with, especially when it comes to either creating it yourself or getting someone else to create it. It'll give you a whole bunch of pointers that you'll be able to show graphic designers and people like that. Again, think about your ideal customer or client so that you know that the design or the brand that you come up with is actually something that is of value to them and something that will resonate with them. Now, the very important thing that you might like to wonder about, and the thing that did my head in when I first started working online, was where on earth was this ebook going to live? I had no idea. How was it going to get off my computer and onto the internet? I couldn't fathom it. And this day and age, it's much, much easier than it was when we started. Now it can actually live in the cloud, and the cloud can be on your computer and on the web at the same time. I'm sure you've heard of the word cloud computing before. You may or may not have heard of Dropbox. Most people these days have. But it just means that a file can live on your computer and on the internet at the same time. And it has been a very common way now that you can just have a link to that ebook or to that file that exists on your computer but also exists on the web. And people can then download that from the web version of your file. There's also places like Google Drive as well, which again is another cloud-based platform. And these are all places that you would put your ebook, you would upload it so that other people can download it. In the case of Google Drive and Dropbox, you would just have to put it in a folder on your computer. And then when the next time your computer is connected to the internet, it automatically syncs. You don't actually have to upload it, it happens automatically. And that's what I love about cloud computing. However, there are lots of other ways you can do it too. We won't get into that at the moment because we don't have time. And this is just an overview to give you some ideas and to get you started and asking the right questions as well. So once you have a link where you have your ebook living, you just put that link on your website or in an email that people get after they pay you the money, or maybe on a website called ClickBank. And ClickBank is a place that people go to sell particularly digital products and particularly ebooks. In fact, if you had it there at ClickBank, that's also got a marketplace where affiliates come, so other people come and they will sell your product for you for a fee, often 50% or whatever. So that's not a bad thing to look at in the future too, once you do have a digital product. Then of course there's Amazon, which provides a service for you to upload your digital product so that people can then download it. And then there's another place I'd like you to think about, and we will touch on this a bit later. It's called Udemy. It's a website where you can go and learn a whole lot of things. People can sign up for lots of courses, which is of course perfect for what you're creating, which is a digital how-to product where you're teaching people to do stuff. So I would give that a bit of a thought. Udemy. Well, again, we'll touch on it a little bit more later. Now, one of the important things when you're creating a product and you're going to sell it is where you're going to get the money from. We're not going to talk about that today. That's all in next week's webinar, which is all about selling it. So it's how you're going to collect that money and how you're going to market it. All right, so if you have any questions, please use the chat box. I'm hoping Simon is keeping a bit of an eye on it, although I know that technology is going against us a little bit at the moment. I'm also hoping that my computer doesn't run out of battery power. We're going to move on to video next. Well, we did indeed get caught up in a bit of a technical hiccup where my computer ran out of battery power. So I'm very sorry if you were listening to the live event. We have decided to record the second half of this webinar and then stick the two together, and you'll have plenty of time to watch it at your leisure, which you will be doing now if you're watching this. So again, another technical hiccup. We also had really bad internet there at the cafe and quite horrible ambient noise, which you'll be able to hear at the first half of this video. So I do apologise for that. Rookie mistake, but I hope we were just so keen to get this information out to you that we wanted to go ahead anyway. So I'm going to record this, and hopefully the video will be uploaded in overnight, although it could take a couple of weeks with the internet speed we have at the moment, but with any luck it won't. Okay, so let's move on. We've just talked about ebooks and how you can create them, including doing it yourself and including perhaps having an outsourcer do it for you, a ghostwriter in the case of an ebook. And we also talked about some of the places your ebook might live, i.e. in the cloud or over at some of the other services like Amazon S3 or some places like that. So now what we wanted to do was move on to video as a platform, remembering that if your particular how-to is very video focused, as in it's a how-to that would really do with visuals in some way. So if it was something like how to put a table together, then a video would be a great use, wouldn't it? Because people can pause it, they can go and do what you've just instructed and then come back to the video and play it again. Is actually a really good use of video. In fact, how-tos themselves really do lend themselves to videos. The other thing I wanted to tell you about video is that YouTube, which is everybody on the planet now pretty much has heard of YouTube, it is actually the second most searched search engine on the web. It is also owned by Google. And Google, of course, is the most searched search engine on the web. So if you've got some property or some part of your business in YouTube as well as in Google, then you're going to do very, very well. Why do people go to YouTube so much? Well, often they actually go to find out how to do something in video, just as we just talked about with the table example. So it's a really good place to have a how-to, because that's where your potential customers are often going in order to find information on how to do something. So there's lots of reasons why video is a really good format for how-tos. A lot of people will even refer to YouTube as the university of YouTube. Our youngest son here, who we are travelling around with at the moment, he's turned 11 since we've left Australia, but he didn't know any piano really until after we left Australia. He decided he wanted to learn a little bit of piano. However, obviously travelling with just basically a bag each, there's not really a lot of room for a piano. So the most he had in order to teach himself was access to YouTube, and he had a little piano app on his iPad. And with that, he has managed to teach himself a couple of really good songs. So he goes into YouTube, he finds out exactly how to play a song. He then learns how to play it on his iPad. And then whenever we see a piano, either in a house that we might be house sitting, or even one of those public pianos you see in places like train stations and in malls, he would run up and sit on these pianos and play these songs. And he's memorised them. He's doing a really good job. We're very proud of him. But he wouldn't have been able to do it without the use of YouTube. And the other very small example I have is when Simon was doing some renovations in our house, he was having a little bit of trouble getting the plastering done in the cornices when we were doing some renovation. So, what did he do? He went to YouTube and he found some really good videos that showed him exactly what to do, and he was no longer swearing at the plastering. It was actually a job that he could do thanks to YouTube. So, they're just two very simple examples, but it is very, very useful and very accessible. Most people get really frightened. Right now you're actually watching a video, something that I've created for you. It's actually really easy. Hopefully after these next couple of slides you'll understand as well that it's something that you can do without too much stress and too much preparation either, or even too much hardware. You don't need lots of expensive pieces of kit anymore thanks to smartphones and computers. all the structural work that we did with the ebook can all be brought over here to the video format as well. So once you've got an outline, for example, that can be the outline for your videos. You could do part 1, part 2, part 3 of your video, etc. So that all of those things are still relevant, and so is all the branding that we talked about when we talked about going to get a book cover and looking at your, your logo and, the feel that you want to have for this new product, this new business that you're creating. The same applies to your video. So all of that kind of work you can also repeat here in the video format if you decide to use a video as your ultimate product platform. So what about video? What kinds of things could you do in video? Now, it would depend on your particular how-to that you're doing, but it might lend itself to live action, like we were talking about a minute ago. Perhaps putting a table together is actually, that would be an example of live action, where you could shoot the different things that you need to do in movement in a live way, and then put it up for replay later. That's a really good example for live action. Or maybe it's a PowerPoint, or Keynote is the Macintosh version of PowerPoint sort of presentation, a little bit like I'm doing now, what you would call a webinar online, and you can record that using software on the computer, and you can step people through how-to steps, basically using the screen capture things that are you can use, doing the PowerPoint style presentation. And then again, there are screen capture, which is similar to the PowerPoint Keynote kind of presentations, except in a screen capture, you're often actually showing something that's going on the computer. So that would lend itself very well if you were going to teach how to do some sort of gaming technique, or maybe you wanted to teach people how to use a particular software on the computer, like some kind of image editor, for example. There's always a lot of call for those kind of videos. If you go to YouTube, you'll find there are loads and loads of those kind of videos on YouTube, because people, they're on a computer and they want to learn how to use something. They'll often go and Google, how do I do X, Y, Z? And so it's a very easy thing for you to do, and I will point out some particular software that you can use in order to do the screen capture, especially if you're very good at using a particular piece of software on the web or on your computer. So what about all the hardware that you might need? A lot of people get quite, stressed about what they might need, and it might be expensive, and all these little gadgets and things. I was listening to something today, and even 5 years ago, to get any kind of good quality video and audio that we're talking about being able to sell, it was actually quite difficult to get, the hardware. Could be quite expensive and then quite complicated to use as well. But these days, with just a little bit of forethought, you can access hardware, things like the camera and the tripod, and maybe even a cheap lighting kit very, very cheaply. So what might you need if you're doing sort of a real-world photo shoot? Well, like I said, you need to think a little bit about the lighting. You can go to eBay and get a lighting kit. I think we got one maybe 2 years ago for less than $100. It wasn't very much. And it was all we needed we were doing some product videos and things. It was quite sufficient. You may not even need lighting, depends on what you're trying to shoot. You might get enough natural light where you're trying to shoot, or you could just use natural light. That's all of that stuff is possible. How do you work out whether what you've got, what already available, is good enough? Well, you test. You go and you do a little bit of a test run, and you see if the video comes up with a quality that you're happy with, then that's fine. If that lighting is if you're happy with it. A tripod, you can get tripods really, really cheaply, like really cheaply, $5, $10, whatever, really cheap. And you can put your phone, because of course most of the videos that we shoot these days, we shoot on our phone, and they have more than adequate quality for replaying video on people's computers. Of course, if you want to and you have a nice little camera, you can always use that, but we've found that our smartphones have more than enough capacity to be able to shoot the videos that we want to shoot. So it depends on, again, what you want to shoot, but you'll find that your phone can be your best friend, and you're walking around with it in your pocket, so you may as well put it to use. Excuse me. So if you've got all of those things right there in front of you, the other thing you need to think about is the sound. So how's the sound going to go? What are you going to do for sound? Because sometimes the sound on your phone isn't great. What I found with that, especially if you're outside or somewhere noisy, is that I actually use, when I'm just recording speaking videos or I'm recording directly to the camera, just talking, I will plug in the headphones. So as long as it's a phone headphone, so therefore it has a microphone on it, that's been really good at cutting out a lot of the background noise. And the other thing that I do is use a lapel mic, which I'm actually using right now, funny enough, because we were using it in the cafe. It was the best of the few that I had tested. Again, I tested it before we got on, but this was the best at cutting out some of the background noise. We thought I should continue to use it even though I'm now in a much quieter environment, because that'll continue the same sort of quality. But the lapel mic, again, very cheap. I think maybe $70, and I can plug it into my phone. We were using it quite regularly when we were doing workshops with 50 to 100 people. I was walking around with my phone in my pocket and the lapel mic clipped to my collar of whatever I was wearing. So, and that gave really good recording sound, and then we could mix it together with video later. So that's one way you could get some good sound. The other thing is the sound that's on your computer. I would test that if you're doing things relating to your computer. You can also get really good headsets, of course, which have reasonable mics. And then the other one that I use when I'm doing something like this on my computer is a USB mic called a Samson Go mic. And it's very, very popular at the moment, and again, well under $100. It plugs into your computer and gives you great sound quality. And that quality, well, actually, it also gives you the ability to block out background noise if that's what you want to a certain degree. Although I still found that the lapel mic was better for me today, and I was in the cafe situation. Yeah, so you have three options on that. I think there's a directional part mic, or there's the one which includes surround sound, and then there's another one which works at a lower decibel, which is a directional mic as well. It's all very tech, and I don't really understand it, but I do test it and work out which one works best for the situation I'm in. And that, of course, is what you need to do. And as I've been saying, what you need to do to stop the heartbreak, which is what we probably had a little bit of today, is you need to test. Now, my computer ended up running out of power as well, and that was because we didn't have the ability to charge while we were there. And although I started at 100%, all the recording devices I have on my computer going at the same time to make sure I had a backup, they used my battery power very quickly. So that was, again, something I should have tested. But anyway, prior to that, I had already tested all of the mics and the video to make sure that they worked. The worst thing you can do is be speaking for an hour or whatever, and or recording a bunch of video and then finding out there's no sound on it, or something else is not working. So whatever you do, always check, always. Otherwise, you will just be in tears, and I don't want that. I don't want that at all. So what about the software? So that's the hardware, the things that are solid, if you like. What about the software that you'll need for video? I just touched on the iPhone before, because the iPhone, and of course the Androids as well, they have some really cool software on them, or apps. For example, I use iMovie on the iPhone, and Videolicious is another really cool app that I use. And then there's one called Animoto, which works both on iPhone and Android. And they are really great little apps that you can use to do some fantastic kind of interview style videos, for example. I also use iMovie to edit movies, and that again has lots of really cool functionality in it. And all of those apps that I've just mentioned to do short little videos give you the ability to upload directly to YouTube, which is awesome. So go and have a look at those. I will put the links to everything that I mentioned with this video where it's hosted on my website. If you're listening to this on YouTube for some reason, then you just need to come over to the website, which there should be a link to in the notes or in the comment below. And you'll be able to get a link to all of the different software and all the other websites that we mentioned. So Videolicious, for example, is one that I've used to do testimonials for the government in Australia when I did a bunch of coaching and mentoring. We did some testimonials or some reviews, some live reviews, where I actually talked to the people that I had just given coaching to, and they were able to give feedback straight away. And then before I drove down their driveway, I'd hit send, and those videos were already uploaded to YouTube, and that is how quick it can be. So give it some thought. A little bit of preparation I did beforehand for each interview, like maybe 10 minutes, and then did the interviews and in 5 minutes or less, and then press send, and they were up in YouTube within 10 minutes. So that's the sort of power you can have with the correct apps and software on your smartphones. Now, what about if you're doing something on your computer? Well, the screen capture software that's available, there's Camtasia for PCs, there's ScreenFlow, which is for the Macintosh. They're both high-end pieces of software and cost a little bit of money. ScreenFlow is what I'm recording this on now, and I always ScreenFlow record when I'm doing a webinar, no matter if I'm using GoToWebinar, or if I'm trying to use Google Hangout, or any of the other different ones that will do it directly online. I still do a backup using ScreenFlow, and that's probably another good tip if you're doing live webinars like this, that having some sort of backup recording mechanism is a great idea, just in case something goes wrong. You've got that little backup there for you. Now, there's a software called Jing, Jing, and that would allow you to do 5 minutes worth of how-tos of screen recording. It's very handy if you just want to show someone how to do something quick. It will also store the videos on its website for you, and then you can just send the link to whoever you're making them for. Snagit is also created by the same people who create Jing, but it costs a little bit of money, and as a result you can have a lot longer to record, and it does a few other fancy things as well, so give that a thought. Of course, there's Google Hangout, which half of this webinar has been used. I have created half of this webinar with Google Hangout. It does need a reasonable internet connection, I will say that. So we did last week's webinar, and it went fine because the house we're at had great internet, and there was no problem using Google Hangout at all. But this week, of course, as you know, we've had really bad internet, and we probably will next week, so we'll have to think of an alternative then as well. So just be sure of that. The great thing with Google Hangout when it comes to recording these kind of things is that when you do a live on air, it actually sends the video directly to YouTube for you. So you don't have to do a whole bunch of, fiddling around with it on your computer and then uploading it to YouTube and then waiting for it to get up there, which can take quite a while if you're doing an hour at a time. And the other thing with YouTube is it allows you to edit it inside YouTube, which is really handy too. So I will probably upload this video and try and find a way to stick this together with the other one online, which will be really handy. So you can edit it as well. So you can cut bits out and stick them together and add bits of text and other things actually inside YouTube, which is great. Then there's GoToWebinar. It's actually a paid software online, which I've used quite a bit extensively in the past. You can pay on a monthly basis or annually. Though you do get 30 days free if you want to go and play with it. But again, it will record it for you. But once it's recorded it, you then have to upload it to YouTube if that's what you want to do, or if that's where you want it to live. So all of those are great if you want to do how-to things on your computer. And as I said, I do a lot of the editing. I do with iMovie also on my Mac. So my Mac also has iMovie on it. So that iMovie exists on my iPhone, my iPad, and on my Macintosh. So I have the ability to edit in there. Obviously, PCs would have some great video editing software as well. I'm just not aware of them. You just need to look up video editing software for a PC, and I'm sure you'll come across a heap. Now, what about outsourcing? So we talked a bit about outsourcing with an ebook. How are you going to outsource a video? Well, here's one idea. So there is a little bit of you involved in this, but also a little bit of outsourcing. So an idea that I'd like to run by you is that you actually run a live workshop. Again, this is something that I've done in the past and it's worked to great success. So you could run a live workshop, even if it was just rent a crowd with a bunch of your friends, and then you can record it, just like I explained that I have done in the past with a lapel mic attached to my iPhone. So you can record it, and then you can get somebody else to stick together the recording of your voice and the PowerPoint presentation if that's what you were showing people. Or it might be a video of the actions if you were actually showing live something. That is, again, something you could get an outsourcer to do. So they could edit the video and the audio together and make it work, because the actual editing can be quite complicated in that it just takes a long time. And your time is very valuable. It may well be a really good thing to give someone else to do for you. And of course, the other thing, once you've done a video, if you want to, outside of the little workshop idea, which you can then sell once you've run a workshop. The ideal, let me just skip back a couple of steps. The ideal thing for you're running a workshop to some friends or family, or even to people who pay, is that yes, you get people to pay to come along to a workshop. You record the workshop, and then you can sell the workshop as well. That's the ideal thing, including being able to sell it to the people who attended the live workshop, because there's so much great content that you provide, for example, that they really want the video so that they can go over and over it in the future and get more and more out of it, because once they leave the workshop environment, it's quite possible that they will forget all of the fantastic things that you've sent them, or that you've taught them live, and they want the ability to be able to watch the video over and over again. And then you've also got a product, so that's why this is such a really good idea. The other thing for outsourcing, of course, is the editing, not just of videos in that format, but in any other kind of format as well that you choose to do. There are plenty of outsourcing people out there who want to be able to help you with video, and they're really good at it. So where does this live? Because video is way bigger than your PDF or than your ebook. So you need to think a little bit more about where it will live. If it's a small video, then you can, or a whole bunch of small videos, then you can still use the cloud services we talked about, like Dropbox and Google Drive. But you probably do need to think a little bit about that, because if you have a lot of volume, I'm not sure that Dropbox and Google Drive would stand up to thousands of people coming to download your video. But if you're just starting small and you're not expecting to have to be flooded with people buying your product, then you could still do that. And if your products are your videos are not hugely long, then that's quite doable. The other thing to think about is YouTube. So YouTube, although it is a public platform, as you know, people can go and search. You can put videos up there and you can make them private or unlisted. Now, often I'll put these videos up, the ones where people have paid to be in a membership program with me, I'll put them up as private or unlisted. The difference is with private that nobody can find them at all, and that nobody can access them at all unless they have a link to the actual video. The problem with them is that you can't embed them in another website. However, if you make your videos unlisted, then people won't be able to find them when they just do a normal search. They won't just sort of turn up in YouTube, but you can embed them in your website. So that is an option. If you are getting people to pay for videos, you can actually be hosting them on YouTube. And because YouTube is a video platform, it has plenty of capacity to host videos, obviously. Then there is another service that Amazon runs called Amazon S3, that you have to pay for that. It's not hugely expensive, and it is often based on the amount of videos that are downloaded. So it goes on a sort of volume. So again, if you had loads and loads of people download your video, which would be great, then you would pay based on that. It's not a huge amount, though, in saying that's quite small. And then there's another one which a lot of people online use these days called Wistia. And Wistia is another video hosting platform where you can upload your videos there as well. What do I think about all of that? Well, it just depends on where you think you're going to go and how many people you think are going to be downloading your videos. I've never really had to do much more than a YouTube or a Dropbox or a Google Drive type of situation. But hopefully, your business will be in a situation where it does have to think a little bit more about capacity. The other thing to consider is that if that becomes an issue, then it's not really going to be an issue, because it means you're making a reasonable amount of money because people are buying plenty of your how-to videos, which is fantastic. and then you could go and pay for one of these services, and you can move them onto those services. That's fine. Just you can decide to go one way now and then upgrade it later and in the future. That works well as well. You can also upload them to your own hosting, but again, you'll have the same issues with size and that kind of stuff as you would with the cloud. All right, so once you have done that, you can send your people either a download link to any of the places that you have put your video, or you can actually put the video in a password protected page on your website. So as I do quite often, embed an unlisted YouTube video into one of my websites, and the website itself is password protected, and that's how I have been able to protect a lot of that content that people pay for. You could go really old school if you wanted to, and I guess it's still sort of digital, but you could also burn the videos onto a DVD or put them onto a USB stick and post them. That could probably be an upsell if you got that much into video and that your people were really into video. I think DVDs might be going a little bit of the dinosaurs, but USB sticks are still well and truly around, and we have been known to download course content onto things like a USB stick that people can access. So hopefully that's given you a couple ideas on video. So let's move on to audio. So I know audio is obviously a part of video, but it is, again, a really rising area where people are trying to learn. So how-to is obviously people trying to learn. So because smartphones are so prevalent these days, people are listening to audiobooks, they're listening to podcasts, they're listening to all sorts of things. They're doing it while they're running, while they're driving, while they're cleaning. Any sort of downtime, you'll often see people with a headphone plugged into their ear, and it's not always music that they're listening to. They're often doing what I now call your mobile university. So they are filling their brains full of really cool stuff, which is actually something that we do quite regularly, especially with traveling. We have lots of downtime, so we listen to a lot of podcasts and a lot of ebooks that have been made audio, so an audio ebook. This is something that you can do. How can you do it? Well, there's loads of ways. For example, the first ebook that we ever created, I actually read the ebook. So people could download the PDF and read it themselves, or they could also, as a bit of an upsell, download the audio of the book and listen to me reading it to them. How did I do that? Because all those years ago, I certainly didn't have all the high-tech stuff that you would have needed in order to create a good quality recording. Instead, I talked to a friend of mine who is in recording. She's on the radio, and she suggested a really cool kind of hack when it came to recording. And so I got onto my bed, I got a chair on my bed, I put my doona or my duvet over my head, I had a head torch on, and I had a printed version of my ebook in front of me. So I had a hard copy of my book in front of me, I had a head torch on my head, and I had a small MP3 player, which was a recorder at the time. So these days I would use my iPhone to do the recording, but in those days there was no such thing as an iPhone, so we used it just like a little MP3 recorder. So there I was underneath with a chair to hold the doona up off my head, reading my ebook with a head torch on, and it worked really, really well. Why? Because the doona provides a real dampening effect and makes a great sort of sound, and it stops muffles any outside noise that there might be. So give that a go if you're really interested in creating a digital product of your own, a digital audio product of your own. I would think about getting nice and cozy under your doona with a head torch on and reading it yourself. Why not? The other thing you could do is record yourself answering all those questions. So those 20 to 40 questions, we did talk about that earlier. We sort of glazed over the fact that you could answer those questions yourself and then have somebody else transcribe them. Well, you could just have an audio product just in you answering those questions, probably under the doona on the bed. That would be a great way to get yourself an audio version of your book. Let's move on. We've already talked a little bit about the tools, because when you're recording video, audio is a really important part of video. Now, many people have said to me in the past that whether you're creating video or audio, it is actually the sound that is really important. So not just when you're only creating audio, but also in video. The sound is really important when people are watching a video, especially if you're trying to give instructions to people on how to do stuff. You really need to think a lot about the sound. So what do I use? I've already told you once. I use a lapel mic. I'm using it right now. Hopefully the sound is good and you're finding it quite consistent. It's probably a really good example because the first half of this webinar is horrible sound in a cafe with lots of loud ambient noise in the background. And now you have quiet noise because I'm in a quiet room, I'm in a quiet house, and I'm using the lapel mic. I could have used the, as I said to you before, the Samsung Go mic attached to my computer, which would then record the sound onto my computer. And again, you would have had some really good sound. Once the sound is recorded, no matter how you choose to do it, and again, test, I talked about that before, run it through a test to make sure that you've got good sound. You can get some software for your computer. It works for Macs and PCs. It is free. It's called Audacity. So this is just for editing audio. It's great because you can blow the audio soundtrack up and you can find little chunks that are good or bad, or you can improve them. You can do all sorts of really cool stuff, and it's not that hard to learn. It's not super techy. So Audacity is a really good tool. Again, I'll put a link near this video for you. Another idea for recording audio, perhaps when you're putting together say an audio interview series where you interview a bunch of experts, when you become Oprah, for example, is to use Skype. So you can use Skype and you can get a thing called Skype Call Recorder. Again, it's a little paid piece of software. I don't think it was very much, maybe $20. And it will record all of the calls that you make on Skype. So it will do an MP4, so that's like the movie version. So it'll do a movie version of your call. But when you just want the audio and you're just doing an audio call, it'll do an MP3 for you. If you do the movie version, like because you have, even though you only want the audio, but you're actually talking to somebody's face, like you're using the video call version of Skype, you can still just strip the audio out very easily if you want to do that as well. So give that a thought, especially if you're going to do the interview side of that. Again, where does it live? Well, audio, like the ebook, the PDF version, is quite a small file, much smaller than a video, and you can use Dropbox and Google Drive using the cloud to be able to store it, and when people pay, you send them the link and they download it. Again, if you're going to have massive volume, thousands and thousands of people buying it every week, you would have to think about some other version, way to store it, but that's just one simple way that you could do it from at the moment. Another thing to consider is putting it on something like iTunes as a podcast, because then people can come along to iTunes. They can actually pay to get particular audios on iTunes, and then they would they can host the audio for you. Plus, there's a whole bunch of other services relating to hosting podcasts and things where they can be where the audio can be hosted as well. Also, consider Amazon have an audio book. You can sell / buy audiobooks on Amazon. So that's something else that you can consider in the future, and then go through the process of working out where they want you to keep the audio. Okay, let's move on. Another thing that you could do with your how-tos in order to create it is perhaps a subscription or a membership site, where, especially if what you're going to provide people is like an ongoing thing. So maybe it's a recipe of the month, maybe it's fitness tips every week, or fitness challenges, or for us, in the past we had a quilting product and we used to provide quilting blocks on a regular basis for people to create, which would then turn into a quilt, and a whole bunch of quilting hints and tips. So they all kind of led themselves to the kind of drip feeding content to people, and we were very big at doing that. We also have the Mission Coaching Club, which is a question and answer coaching club, which people sign up to and they pay once a month, and they send in their questions and we answer them a couple of times a month, so twice a month. So that's a whole bunch of business questions relating to working online generally. but that lends itself to regular updates and creating a subscription/membership site. In fact, how-tos can be very good at doing that. Why would you want to create a how-to site rather than just, a how-to subscription or membership site rather than just, providing a course that people can download? Well, yes, it is ongoing work quite often because you need to provide things on an ongoing basis, but the other thing you get in return is an ongoing income. Now, that's sort of the holy grail when you're working online, is to have a place where you are getting an ongoing income. That is great because you can then rely on that income to keep coming in as long as you keep providing great content and you keep marketing it and getting new people in as well, so that you have, the attrition rate is kept down. Then subscription and membership sites can be a fantastic thing for you in your business. So depending on what it is your how-to is about, don't discount things like a subscription site as being a great way to go forward with your how-to, a great platform. So what kind of subscription sites? Well, you can even just do something like a Facebook private group. That has been known to work well in the past. I would have a small caveat on that, in that you don't own Facebook, and that if your entire subscription membership things are run through Facebook, then you might have some issues in the future if something, God forbid, happens to your Facebook account and you can't actually access or run your group anymore. Then that could be real strife. So although it's possible, I wouldn't necessarily consider it to be a great idea. There's also things, as I mentioned earlier, on WordPress, which is the website platform that we prefer and that we use. We have just a simple password protection thing going on there, and WordPress has that built in. That's not a difficult thing to do. You can also get some very cheap and often free, which is pretty cheap, membership plugins which can go into WordPress and give you a little bit more functionality on the site. It's what we use at the Mission Coaching Club, so if you're interested in signing up to that, you can come and have a look and see how we set it up. We might even run another course on just how to set up a subscription site inside WordPress, because I think that's very valuable. There's also more complex options like Joomla is another website platform that you can use, and it has some quite complex membership options, which you may or may not, depending on your technical expertise or your technical support, want to use. And then PayPal will provide you with the ability to very simply create a subscription button. It's very easy, and it's something that we've been able to do. Well, I've been able to do without any help from our technical guys. So trust me, I'm not a very technical person, and I found it quite easy. So will you. Now, what's the next thing that you could think about moving your digital how-to into, or what platform that you could create it on? Maybe, just maybe, you want to become a software genius, even if you're not a technically minded person, a bit like me. It might be, depending on what it is your ideal customer wants, what how-to problem it is that you're trying to solve for them. It might be that an app or some piece of software is actually the best way to solve their problem. For example, I have an app on my phone which provides paleo recipes in one place. So I can go and have a look at those recipes, and I can go and have a look at alternative ingredients. For example, if I can't find a particular paleo ingredient, I can go and have a look and see what can I use as an alternative. And it also helps me when I go out for dinner at what kind of things that I can eat if I want to stick to my paleo diet, for example. The other ones I have a yoga app which I pay a monthly subscription for to have access to new yoga classes. I also have an exercise app. And my exercise app, again, I can pay extra money and I can get all of these extra exercises on a regular basis. So it's a combination, if you like, of a subscription service and a bit of software. Excuse me. So don't be scared away by the fact that it is software, because guess what? You don't have, if you don't want to, if you're not a software genius, you can actually just employ one. And it doesn't have to break your bank. You can actually go, excuse me, to one of the outsourcing websites like Upwork and Elance and Freelancer, and even Fiverr to a degree. And you can ask them to create you a piece of software, whether it's an app or it's something that lives on people's computers, or even as simple as, when we first had the quilting things, one of our upsells to the people who wanted to buy our product, which is an ebook on how to make money from quilting originally, was our first product. We had an upsell where they could actually buy a spreadsheet which was already pre-programmed. Now that is a piece of software because it's got these little macros in it. All they had to do was fill out the basics, and then they could see how many quilts they needed to sell in order to make whatever amount of money they needed to make to get the profit that they needed. And then they could go and fiddle with the numbers in order to see, again, if the price went up by this much, how would that affect their bottom line? So that is a very simple example of software. It doesn't have to be anything complex. Again, what you need to do is be able to communicate to an outsourcer in order to get a little bit of software done. So think about that. Don't discount it. It might even be something that will complement another part of your course that you're going to create or your how-to product. Moving on, what about a magazine? Again, thanks to the wonders of iPads and other kind of tablets, these have become very popular because people have started enjoying consuming their content in this tablet kind of format. And things like magazines have now started to move on to these tablet formats. Depending on your particular product, your particular how-to, a magazine might be a great option when it comes to providing the content. Again, it would tie perhaps a little bit into a subscription style because you might have, say, $5 for whatever for an issue, and it might come out once a month. And so each issue will be filled with a whole bunch of content that you create, and if you have enough of an audience, you can make a reasonable amount of money by doing that. So don't discount it. It doesn't have to be a really expensive thing. Thanks to the wonders of technology, unlike a normal magazine, these kind of online magazines actually have the ability for you to include links and audios and videos. So I actually know a lot of people who have their magazines created once a month, and some of them even give it away, or some of them sell it at a really low monthly price, but they sell other things from within the magazine, which includes links to other products that they sell. So you can't do that in a normal magazine, well, at least not easily. You can write a link in, but you can't put a video in where people can press play, or you can't put a link in where people just have to click. So there is some great advantages to having this kind of platform to have your how-to product on. If you want a really handy course on how to set up a magazine that doesn't have to cost you lots of money for the software to create the magazine in the first place, I'll put a link to that again with this video. There's a really cheap course over in Udemy, U-D-E-M-Y, which I have already mentioned earlier. Udemy is like an online university, if you like, full of how-to products. Again, I'll touch on it very briefly in a minute, but it is a great opportunity for you to go and learn how to create a magazine without it costing you very much. I can't quite remember how much it is, maybe $50 or something. But if you think a magazine format would really suit your potential customers and clients, then it's a great idea to go and chase that up. Email. Now, email. Did you even think that I would include email in here? But it is actually a really powerful and very simple way for you to be able to deliver a how-to course of some sort. So again, we might be talking about a subscription-y style thing. When we first started the quilting, it was actually sign up, give us your email address, and we will provide X number of quilting blocks each week. And then we created some mystery quilts. So people actually paid, and then they would get one step each week for a month. So we'd get 4 emails in a month that gave them the steps to be able to create what the mystery quilt was at the end. And that was really powerful, and people paid for that. And it was really, really simple to do. All we really needed was an autoresponder. There is a free there's free autoresponder. Should start from scratch. Autoresponder is basically an automatic email service, if you like. So it automatically sets up the email to go out when they've got this one, then the next one they're going to get is this one, the next one is going to get is this one. So depending on when you sign up, you're always going to start at 1 and end at 10, depending on how many emails you have in your autoresponder. So MailChimp does have an autoresponder. MailChimp is an online email service, which is free. However, I think the autoresponder part of that is actually an upsell inside MailChimp. You need to go and have a look at that to see if that's possible. Of course, you could just have, even if it's not an ongoing thing, you could just have the free MailChimp, and the first email that people get actually gives them whatever it is that you're selling them. Could all be inside that email in some way. Then Aweber, which is another autoresponder or email service online, which is one that we use and have used for a really long time. It's a little bit more expensive, but it has great autoresponders in there, and you can set all of this up automatically. And you just go away, and all you need to do is feed people into the front end of the funnel, so to speak, and then Aweber or your autoresponder takes care of the rest. There are plenty of others as well. If you just Google autoresponder, you might find some others that will do what you want. So if that suits your how-to, then just a plain, simple email autoresponder could be all you need in order to get your business off the ground, so to speak. Or, of course, it is possible that you could have all of those things in one. I kind of touched on that when we first started in the quilting industry, selling ebooks. We started as an ebook, then we moved on to videos, and then we added audio and software. And we had subscription stuff as well. So we had all of those things all rolled into one. You could buy either one, or you could buy them as a package. So that is possible for you as well. So I would start with one, the one that you think will be the best received, if you like, and the one that you can create the quickest, because that's really important, that you get something out there, you take action, and you start seeing results, and then you can build on it, which is exactly what we did over time. I've also added Udemy to the bottom of this because I said I would talk about it a little bit more. It is a really great platform for you to go and create your course on there as well, or to sell your course on there. You can do video stuff on there, you can do the ebook things, you can do all kinds of stuff. Go and have a look on Udemy, not just as a participant to learn, but also as a provider of the content, as a teacher. Because you are, after all, in this process, you're learning to be a teacher. You want to teach people things. You want to create a how-to product. It is a how to do something. You may as well go to Udemy and have it there as well. So you could have it just there. There are plenty of people who make a lot of money just on Udemy, but I would suggest that you, again, have something else that you own, i.e. your own website, where you provide the same sort of content, but at least at Udemy, people are going there prepared to learn. That's what they're there for. They're there looking for classes in XYZ. So if you can see there's already a couple of classes in what you want to teach, it's a great place to be. All right? So go and have a look at Udemy, and there's how it's spelt is just there. And yeah, you could have people sign up tomorrow in Udemy. So this is just a really brief overview of security, because often when we get to this stage and people talk about creating their product and they start thinking about copyright and they start saying, well, I'm going to put all this sweat and tears into creating a product, I really don't want people to steal it. How do I think about that? Well, people do occasionally blatantly copy some of the products we've created in the past, or the products that we've even had created that we've paid good money for to be created when we've had ghostwriters and things like that. So I just take it as a bit of a compliment. And if you build into your product links that come back to you in some way, whether it's links to, say, we keep talking about our Facebook group called Boldly Different, for example, or maybe there's links back to your website, then that's one thing you can do. And if you have images in your product, if you have a watermark on it, that's something else you can do. But if somebody's serious about stealing all of your stuff, they can replicate all of that just by going and getting it outsourced, if you like. So I try not to get too stressed about it, because the one thing that I can do that they can't do is I build a community. So you build a community around this particular product or service, and although other people could come and they could steal the product and be selling the product, they can't steal you and they can't steal your community. And that is where the power of your business online will lie. The community that you build around yourself will be the making of your business, and it will also be the security for your business. We will talk about community a lot more next week in the last webinar in this series, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that community is the only real security that you will have online, is by building a crowd of people that know, like, and trust you, because then you can create products for them ongoing into the future, and it will be irrelevant what other people do around you as long as you do that and you serve your community. Which brings me nicely on to our next workshop, which will be next week. Hopefully it will be on Google Hangout again. We will try and source some better internet from somewhere in this country community we've landed ourselves in for the next week. If not, we will let you know what we're going to do, whether we do another recording and just whack that up and forget about the live element, which is a shame because I really enjoy the live element, but we'll see what we can do. It's going to be all about selling or marketing, if you like. So taking this product that we've researched, we've now created it, and then we're going to sell it, which is the really important bit. It's where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. And as long as you've paid attention to the things I've talked about, especially remembering who your ideal client is, who your target market is, and that everything that you do is focused at them, you will find that then we moved into the next workshop, that it will come nice and easily for you, because you'll know who they are, you'll know where to go, and you'll know how to talk to them, which is really, really important. Not to mention you'll know what they want from you. Now, in the meantime, I'm sure you've got thousands and thousands of questions. We would love to see you in the Facebook group, our Boldly Different Facebook group. So just go and search for that in Facebook and ask to join. I will approve you as soon as I can, and ask away. And it's a lovely supportive community in there where we all try and help each other out. If you have some more complex questions that I can help you with, or you just want us to help you go from an idea to making your first sale, which is what we would love to do, then we've put a special offer out in our Mission Question and Answer Coaching Club, which is all about answering your online business questions. Then go over to this link that's on here, which is bit.ly/mission, and type in the code 341 when it comes to paying, and instead of paying $147 a month, you will pay $147 and you'll get 3 full months. Now 3 full months will actually give you 6 webinars, 6 coaching opportunities, 6 opportunities for you to ask us questions, 6 opportunities for us to hold your hand, 6 opportunities, if you like, for you to actually end up with a product that you sell. Now the whole aim of this for us, for Simon and I, is to get you from an idea to a product sale. 3 months is plenty of time for you to do that. You could actually do it within a month. But I assume you have other things that are going on in your life. So if you do, then take an opportunity to take these 3 months for us to hold your hand, to take you from no product to actually making a sale online. Once you know how to do it once, all you have to do is rinse and repeat. And you can make more money online, and then you can start having a bit of freedom in your life and a bit of choice about what you do with your days, just like we have now while we're traveling the world with our kids. All right, it's been awesome to have you here. I'm really sorry about the disgusting technical issues we've had. Take it as a good example of what not to do for yourself, and I will see you next week. Thank you again, and goodbye.